Good morning, everyone. My name is Betsy Westover. I'm with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. I am the Bureau Chief over the SNAP and Cash Assistance Policy. And I'm here today to talk to you about the Pandemic Electronic Benefits Transfer Program, also known as P-EBT. Just kind of a quick summary in a nutshell of what P-EBT is. It provides children who are in school who would normally receive a free or reduced priced meal at school. They will receive $7.10 per day on an EBT card, which is called an electronic benefit transfer card, acts just like a debit card at a grocery store to buy food. The $7.10.
Good.
Like we need some individuals on mute. Thank you. This benefit is provided to children if two criteria are met. And it first begins with the school eligibility first. What we look at is the school, are they operating on, are they closed due to COVID-19? Are they operating a remote learning model where everyone is, at home participating in classes online? Or has been operating with reduced attendance or hours. This would be like your hybrid schedules. And these operating modes have to be for at least 5 consecutive days. And that is where the school meets their eligibility for the entire year. So if your school has had to close down for a week of 5 consecutive straight days, at that point, your school meets the P-EBT criteria. And then you would look at the individual child eligibility. So first is looking at the school, and then if the child would have received free or reduced price meals under the National School Lunch Program or this school breakfast program, if not for the COVID health emergency. One thing that the United States Department of Agriculture has clarified this round of P-EBT is that remote learning does not include the online virtual schools. And we will go to the next slide, Bridget. Online virtual schools are considered the following if all the criteria are met. There's a separate and distinct IRN from the other school buildings in the district. The IRN is not affiliated with a physical building. It is a permanent option not in place due to the COVID-19 pandemic only. Students do not have an option to show up in person at a school building, and the school is not eligible to operate the National School Lunch Program. This is very key. That we still have some people not muted.
I don't know.
So I just want to really reiterate that the school, if the school is not operating in SLP, then there's no P-EBT eligibility. The remote learning option can be characterized by it's available due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. The child is still enrolled in the physical school building. Students are eligible to receive free or reduced price meals through the school, and students will return to the building whenever the school decides to stop remote learning. All right, Bridget. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Examples of eligible school status include kind of what we went through before, but I just wanted to reiterate it. The entire school is remote learning. Hybrid learning schedules such as remote learning Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but then in-person Tuesday and Thursday, or remote learning one week and then in-person the other week. Children have the option of attending fully remote learning from the school district, even though the school is operating fully in person. So you may have those one-off options. So even just one child who is doing the remote learning can qualify the entire school. And then another way for the school to qualify is if they've had to quarantine a child for at least 5 consecutive days. Again, one child in quarantine makes the entire school eligible for the entire year. Well, once they meet the 5 consecutive days. So a summary of the criteria: the school has to have operated on a non-standard schedule for at least 5 consecutive days due to COVID-19, and meals are not provided to eat at the school. And then you go to the child and you make sure that the child is eligible for free and reduced price meals. Okay, Bridget, thank you. Once the school criteria has been met and the child has NSLP eligibility, the child is eligible for P-EBT benefits for the day he or she does not attend the school in person. For example, remote learning or closed a certain day of the week as part of the regular attendance schedule. And I would like to point out that this is what they are scheduled to do. So you don't have to keep track of, well, they didn't sign on for classes that day during the remote learning. It's really what is their schedule for the year. Another example of eligible days is the child attends the school in person but does not receive a meal at school to eat at school. For example, children attend in person for 3 hours, but no meal service is provided to eat at school. Or the child is quarantined based on the school quarantine criteria. So this could be even just one day. It does not have to be the 5 consecutive days that establishes the school eligibility first. And, you know, FNS has, or the United States Department of Agriculture, they've worked with us on this that, you know, really we leave it up to the schools what your quarantine criteria is that you have set up when someone needs to stay home, whether you've received a positive or negative test or there's been exposure. That is up for you to decide on your school criteria who is in quarantine. And then the last day would be snow days where the school switches to remote learning. Those would all be eligible. Days ineligible for P-EBT, weekends, holidays, scheduled school breaks, and days off not related to COVID, such as Christmas break, spring break, teacher in-service days. Snow days where there is no instruction occurring remotely or in person are ineligible for P-EBT. And then any days a child attends school in person and receives a meal, breakfast or lunch to eat at school. Those are all ineligible days. And so resources we will have for families, our Ohio Association of Food Banks has worked with us to help get up a P-EBT website to help families. And every time we do this and have new information on who qualifies, they update their website as well. And then we also have a question and answers document that will be posted once we have our final approval. And then we have what's called a P-EBT card buck slip. It goes in with the card that goes out to the families and its instructions how to use the card. And then all of our documents are translated into 6 other languages besides English. And that is all I have for you today. And I will turn it over to Bridget. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Betsy. Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Hires. I am the Director of the Office of Nutrition at the Ohio Department of Education. And I just want to talk about a few Ohio Department of Education resources to help you with P-EBT. So the first thing we have is we have a question and answer resource. It is on the Ohio Department of Education website. We will make these slides available to everyone. If you're a food service director, we will make them available in the claims reimbursement reporting system, the CURS system, under download forms here. Give us a day or two to make those available, and then you'll have the hyperlink, of course, through those slides. And we'll also make them available through Management Council along with a recording of this, this webinar. So you can also go to the Ohio Department of Education website at education.ohio.gov. And if you search in the upper right-hand corner, there's a search box, pandemic electronic, or even if you put P-EBT in, then it pretty readily comes up with our P-EBT guidance. And it's more geared towards schools and school questions. I will say that we did have a webinar in September, which we collected a lot of great questions, and we will also combine the questions from this webinar and make a very comprehensive Q&A available here in the next week or two, as well as a resource document. So we've got a couple different resources to help you out and figure out this P-EBT this year. Some of the common questions that the Ohio Department of Education is receiving is questions about the online school. If a child is either remote learning versus online school. So if your district started a online learning academy and it was based on the summertime House Bill, I think it was 110, a guidance, and it is a completely virtual school that is not affiliated with a school building. Those children are not eligible for P-EBT because that school is no longer eligible for the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program. And because the children attending that school would then no longer be eligible for free or reduced price meals in a traditional sense, that is why they're not eligible for P-EBT. So if you need a little bit more information about that, we do have that delineated in question 8 of the Q&A. Another question that we're receiving is, when does eligibility for P-EBT start? So children are approved for free or reduced price meals in a variety of ways for the purposes of P-EBT specifically. If you approved a child based on a traditional paper application, free or reduced price application, you can actually use a paper application from 1920, 2021, or 21-22 as long as a new determination has not been made. So for example, if a household sent in a 1920 application and was approved for free meals, but in 21-22, they sent in a new application and they were now over the income limits and were denied meals, that child would no longer be eligible for free or reduced price meals and thus no longer eligible for P-EBT. So you can use any of those paper applications given that a new application wasn't received and a new determination wasn't made. So if somebody applies in school year 21-22, then that child would be free or reduced price eligible if they were approved for benefits from the date that that application was received in-house. So you don't have to do it from the date that you approved it. Just like in a normal year, we give everybody a little bit of leeway for when they actually submitted the application to give school food service a little bit of time to be able to process those applications. So it would be for when that application was received in-house. That's from the date of the eligibility to start, again, for the kids that were approved for school year 21-22. And if you want a little bit more information about that one, check out question 7. So we do also get a lot of questions about, because the children are all receiving no-cost meals through the Seamless Summer Program right now, does that mean that they all qualify for free meals? And the answer is no. The Seamless Summer Program allows for no-cost meals to all students, but that does not translate into all the students being deemed free eligible. So if you want a little bit more information about that question, check out question 4. For direct certification is a little bit different. And the reason being is that the direct certification from 2021 does not carry over into 21-22 because once you run a new direct certification list in 21-22, that shows you exactly who is on SNAPs right now. So if a child was on a direct certification list in 2021 but no longer shows up in 21-22, that actually serves as a new determination for that student. It means that they're no longer on SNAP and thus no longer free meal approved based on SNAP. So that one is different compared to a paper traditional application. And for more information about that question, check out question 4. We do get a lot of questions about quarantine days. In quarantine days, once a school is eligible, based on any of the criteria that Betsy had mentioned, either the school was closed for cleaning, they had one child that quarantined for at least 5 days, and that one child doesn't have to be free or reduced eligible, just like one child in the school had to quarantine for at least 5 days, or one child in the school is remote learning due to COVID. Once a school is approved for submitting P-EBT for benefits, then the 5 days no longer matters. Doesn't matter from that point forward. So in that case, any days of quarantine can be counted. Like if a student is sent home to quarantine for 1 or 2 days until they get a negative COVID test, then as long as the school had been eligible to submit for P-EBT, that student can get P-EBT for those 1 or 2 quarantine days, as long as the student also is free or reduced eligible or in attendance at a building that would traditionally be on the community eligibility provision or provision 2 had the pandemic not occurred, understanding that everybody really is on seamless summer option this year. So more information about that is question 2. Students have to be at high school grade or below, so there is no age limit to P-EBT benefits. You could have a 19-year-old that's still in high school, like K-12 education. And as long as the child is in K-12 education and has appropriate P-EBT days and the school has qualified to submit for P-EBT, that child can still get P-EBT. If you have withdrawn students, then you'll want to submit for P-EBT appropriate days up to the date of withdrawal so that they can still get those benefits. And then assuming that the new school of attendance would then take over for appropriate P-EBT days. Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to Missy Balbal from Management Council to talk about data submission.
Thanks, Bridget. Want to go ahead and advance? While we're advancing, I'm Missy Balbal with Management Council, and I'm the Director of Customer Service and Support. And I work with the data intake for pandemic EBT. Some items around the student data. Each month, we will be doing a data collection this year. You do not have to submit every month, but we are collecting every month so that students can get benefits more quickly. We will only accept for the previous months. So for example, our November collection, we just sent messages out yesterday to open that, and we will accept any days from August, September, or October at this time. Do not remove any columns from the template. I was going through some of them already submitted, and some people have removed August, September. That column, that will not fund the kids correctly. So do not remove the months. Even if you had no days in August, September, and you have days in October, you must keep the August, September column in the file. We're asking not to filter or sort data. We've seen multiple instances where this has been done incorrectly, and it triggers a new P-EBT card and potential overpayment. If this incorrect sort can misalign first and last name, we've often seen it also misalign date of birth. If any of those don't match from month to month, it will cause problems with the payments. Also cause problems for the families in activating those cards. So we're asking, please don't filter or sort any data. Don't change the student's name in the file. I do know that there are students that have legal name changes throughout the school year. If the student is that, if you have that situation, we're asking the school to please contact us. We can work with the vendor to update the student's name on the card so that new files coming forward will continue to go to that same card. If the student has any sort of punctuation in his or her name, a hyphen and or apostrophes, it has to be submitted the same every month to make sure that the funds continue to be applied to the same card. As we continue to go, if that changes and you have all of the days in, it could result in a potential overpayment, and we don't want to have that. So please make sure that once you have a student in, and if they have any sort of punctuation, that you keep that. Make sure you check the format for the date of birth. It needs to be the 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year. It does permit leading zeros to be dropped. So if it's May 1st, it can be 5/1. It doesn't have to be 0501. Students with invalid or missing addresses. So there are 2 addresses within the data file. One is the residential address and the other is the mailing address. The residential address has to be Ohio. If the residential address is not Ohio, it will not fund the student. So they also have to have addresses. If it is a homeless student, the district is permitted to put the district address in. And if that's resulting in a new card, then it becomes the district responsibility to get that card to the student. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. We do know that there has been several instances of change in guardianship, be foster care and or change between father to mother or vice versa. In this situation, the cards are always going to continue to be applied to any existing card. And that card is expected to move with the student when guardianship changes. We also know that that does not always happen. So if it doesn't follow the student, the procedure that's in place is that the district must contact support and let us know that a new card needs to be issued to the new guardian. Many times we'll get a guardian that will contact support stating that they just received custody of a child and are asking about getting access to the P-EBT benefit. In those instances, we direct that guardian back to the school. We are relying on the school because you have documentation of when that guardianship changed, that you contact us and confirm that the student is now with the new guardian, the new address that is on record with the school, and then we will get a new card issued out. At the time of that occurring, any remaining funds on the previous card will be locked and changed to the new card. And then future funds will continue to be applied to that new card. If you have a guardianship, if you have a guardianship change, you can call us. The number is 866-244-0071 and select option 1. And then the information you need to provide, the date of the change, as well as the new guardian's name and address. Sorry, go ahead and change now. Thank you. So where to submit your data each month? We do send a message out to EMIS coordinators, food service directors, and we copy the superintendents just so that they are aware. Within the email message, there is a secure link that will automatically log you in. The beginning of that is the web URL is ohioK12.help/PEBT portal. Anyone can go to that area of the site and there are resources that are available without being logged in. And then after you're there, if you are logged in, we have the templates available. And then I did see pop up in the chat the question for the template for this year. It is the same template that was used last year. So if you already have that, you can continue to use that template. We do have the template also available for download on the site. After every submission, we do email to whoever submitted a report. We will provide informational warnings as well as fatal errors. So if you have any of those, we do provide that back on a report that gets emailed to you. The report is also available on the portal as well that you can download. If you don't receive the email, it will view on the portal. And for those of you who haven't seen it before, I want to take a moment and show you our portal. Now, what I'm going to show you is a demo site. And on that demo site, there are some things that are slightly different just because it is sample. But this is our homepage. From here, there's information about the P-EBT program, a link to the data submissions, a link where you can view your previously issued benefits, and then also a way to contact support. If we look at our issued benefits, I am logged in as a test district that we have in our system. Right now we see under 2020-2021 school year, if you were to select a benefit period, and it will take it just a minute here, it will actually load a list of students that were associated with your IRN and the number of days that they were funded for and the date that that payment went out. So in this instance, we happen to be looking at February. And for this particular list of students, I can view the child, their date of birth, gender, how many days they were funded, and that they should have received those benefits in May. So if a parent were to contact the school and say, I don't believe you submitted my child, this is a way to know not only who you submitted, but that they were successfully funded. After you submit, I mentioned the reports. This is under the data submissions, and there will be a list of reports. We clear these out every month, so the reports that you see would be only for the current month. If you're ever in need of a previous report and don't have it, you can contact support and we can send that to you. But this is a way that you can also download the report if you don't receive it in email. When you submit, the form that you submit on, you can download the data template. There is a data dictionary that explains the format for each of the columns and how those need to be formatted. When you submit or enter your school email address so that you receive that report, and then you would simply upload the file. On our program information page, there is a link to ODE's site for program information, a link to the JFS site for parent information. We will be updating the webinar Q&A once we complete this webinar and put both webinars together. The presentation PowerPoint from our last webinar is available, as well as the recording from the last webinar. And those are all on the program information page. And if you are logged in, the help site, you can submit a support request, enter your email, your name, your district or school, what county you're in, and then any questions that you may have. If you have a guardianship change, you could also submit that through this site, and we can handle a guardianship change this way as well if you provide the necessary information. And then Bridget, if you can bring us back to the presentation. Thank you. So our deadlines are established for this year. It is the second Thursday of the month, with the exception right now of November. It does end on Friday, November 12th. The Department of Education and Job and Family Services are closed on November 11th for Veterans Day. So we did extend that to Friday, November 12th. We will open on the first Monday of the month, or the first business day. So if the first happens to fall on a Tuesday, we would open on that Tuesday at the latest. So those are the deadlines. And as I had stated previously, you can submit for any prior month at the time of submission. So in December, we will accept days from August, September, October, and November. So we understand that things change. People may miss a kid or miss some days potentially. If you find that you've submitted August, September, and that there was an error, you can submit corrections. What we're asking is that if there are additional days, that you have to add put in the total number of days that need to be funded. We will subtract off what's already been funded so that they get the difference. You cannot reduce days. If you find that you put a student in for 5 days and they should not have had any days, there isn't a way to reduce that going forward from the district side, because those funds would have already been distributed. So corrections are only for adding days. If you did find that you have significant errors in your data after you get your data report back, we're asking that you please contact the support team. We will remove that data load that you had and allow you to then submit a new file. This results in better data for you. It also reduces the possibility of potential overfunding for students. Bridget, if you want to advance, please. If you have any questions, you're welcome to use the P-EBT portal, the support form. You're also welcome to email PEBT-support@ohio-k12.help. And then you can also call our phone number, 866-244-0071. It is option 1. We do have 2 customer support agents that are focused on assisting schools and districts with submitting when the submission window is open. So you're also welcome to call that number to get a hold of us if you have any questions.
Okay. Missy, I think that we have several questions for you. The first question is, if we need to make a correction, do we add the days missed to the current month or use the column from the previous month?
You would use the correct month. So if the error was from August, September, make the correction in August, September. So if John was submitted for 5 days in August, September and should have had 15 days, add that, make 15 show for John in August, September.
Okay. And then the next question is the request for the website address of the site that you were showing the data for.
Okay, so it is at ohio-k12.help. And if you you do a slash and it's PEBT-portal. And that will get you any of the information that is available without being logged in. If you are an EMIS coordinator, a food service director, a superintendent, you would receive a secure link that would allow you to see the logged in information as well.
Okay. The next question is, for the October submission, should the days that were submitted for August, September still be there, or should they be blanked out if already funded for August, September?
Great question. We will accept either way. So you can leave your August, September days in there. If there's no change to them, we will essentially zero it out because we'll see that student is already being funded. Or you can clear them out if you want. We will accept it either way.
Okay. If the student moves, do we update the address on the spreadsheet?
Sure. So please update the address if the student moves. They do get a notice every month when funds are issued. So that would get the notice to the correct address. So please update those as students move.
Okay. Do we need to resubmit the previous names every month, even if they do not have days on the current month?
Great question. I will tell you that you can, but you don't have to. So we do have some schools that only give us students each month that are going to receive funds for that month. We have others, they've received a file from their ITC of all students who are eligible, and they just keep the list complete and only put numbers in for the days or for the students that need funds for that particular month. So either is acceptable.
Okay. The next question is, if we are a resident district and the student is foster placed in another Ohio district, does the educating district report for P-EBT or the resident district?
So it should be the district where the student would be receiving meals at that time is who we are expecting to report, because they would have the knowledge of if the student was there and receiving meals at the school or not.
Okay. And the next question is more of a comment and then a question. The fact that the spreadsheet can't be sorted is a daunting task for large districts. I have to continuously update the sheet manually other than using VLOOKUP to import days from the spreadsheet. Any way we can sort by SSID to make this easier on districts to enter information?
So I will say that I know that some ITCs provided files that included SSID to districts initially, and then the district was responsible for deleting that column before submitting the data. It is the district's responsibility if there's an error that occurs in the process of sorting. You know, ultimately, we want to make sure that the right students are funded, that when they get the cards, they're able to activate them. So it is at the district's risk if you choose to do any kind of sort on that.
Okay. Do we download a new template each month to adjust for students withdrawn, new students enrolled?
So you could take withdrawn students and just not put any days in for them going forward, and add students to the end. I know that some districts that work with ITCs request new downloads of eligible students each month, and that is also fine. So it's whatever works best for your district as to how to handle that. If it's adding one student on, some people choose to type it at the bottom. Others choose to get a new file. So it's whatever works best for your district.
Okay, great. And I think the last one was just a request to repeat the web address. I wonder if you want to type it into the chat.
Yep,
Maybe
I can do that.
Okay, cool. All right, Betsy, I think the next ones are for us. So the question is, if there's several questions about, can we clarify how a school becomes eligible to submit data for P-EBT? Some people are asking, is it just based on quarantine days? Does a child have to be out of school? Does it have to be a free or reduced student? So maybe just go back over how a school becomes eligible.
Okay, so yeah, I did see quite a few questions coming in. Regarding the schools that are all in person, no one is remote, no one is hybrid, you will qualify through the school will qualify if one child is quarantined for 5 consecutive days. So that's a way you can qualify. So then any child after the school qualifies that is out for quarantine for even 1 day can receive P-EBT for that day they are out of school due to quarantine. So example, let's say you don't have a quarantine child until like September 20th. After September 25th of that child being quarantined, anyone from September 20th that has a quarantine day can receive P-EBT for those days they quarantine in September. And then if there's anyone quarantining in October, November, etc. So it just has to be the days they are actually not at school because of the quarantine. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of all the scenarios we saw. Oh, we saw a question about the community eligible provision schools. So as a CEP school, you are eligible, or all the children are eligible for free and reduced price meals. However, that doesn't automatically qualify someone for P-EBT. The student has to not be at school receiving a meal due to COVID. So it's either quarantine or they are on a remote learning schedule or a hybrid learning schedule. So if they're hybrid, they would only get it for, like, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they were remote learning from home. They would only get it for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday they're at home. Did I cover all the scenarios, Bridget, you think, from the questions?
I think so. There's kind of a unique question about, once the school qualifies, do qualifying days for all other students start after that date? What if they had eligible days at the same time or before the qualifying student?
Okay. So it's not before. So I was trying to get with that September 20th. So if this 5 days starts on September 20th, once the 5th day is met, the school qualifies and anybody's days can go back to September 20th, the beginning of the eligibility period, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But it's not before. So if the school had no one quarantining until September 20th, well, but I take that back. If you had a child quarantining for 2 days on like September 10th and 11th, the school never met the criteria, so those days would not count. You have to have the 5 days consecutively for the school to become eligible. I hope that clarified it. I know it's kind of muddy.
So the next question is about preschool. The question was, does the resident district or the attending district submit for preschool? But maybe we just start at exactly like, you know, when is preschool actually eligible for P-EBT?
So it's just for that. Oh, what'd you say, Bridget?
Or do you want me to cover that one?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So preschool, the biggest thing with preschool is the question of, would you have been feeding preschool students national school lunch or school breakfast programs prior to the pandemic? So if the answer is no, you might have just been providing a snack or milk under special milk program. Preschool students are actually not eligible in that case for P-EBT. Because P-EBT is a cash benefit replacement for school breakfast and school lunch meals the children would have received in school had they been in school. But for various reasons like quarantining or remote learning or whatnot, or don't have access to those meals. So if preschool wouldn't have had access to those meals in the first place, they actually aren't eligible. Now, with that said, though, there's a whole nother program that's called childcare P-EBT that the schools are not involved with and don't have to submit data for, that the preschool students in those situations might actually qualify for P-EBT in a different way. But like I said, schools don't have to really worry about that. If the answer is yes, you would have been feeding the preschool students either breakfast, lunch, or both, then they would be handled just like any other student in your school or district. It would be the school of which the child would have been receiving the meals. And then they would be eligible, again, if they're free or reduced price eligible for P-EBT days, for days they had to stay home because of COVID, or if they were doing preschool online, remote learning, that sort of thing. It really would be handled just like any other student at that situation.
Thanks, Bridget. And I do see the question coming up about, does the school have to qualify monthly? And no, it's just, you just have to qualify at one point in the school year, and from then on, you're eligible. Your school is eligible the entire year. Okay. It's not a monthly requirement to meet.
The next question is, do you count from when the student called in sick, got tested, or when the student was positive for COVID?
So that is up to the school's criteria for quarantining. If you are taking anyone's word for it, or you require a test, that will be your own school's criteria for how they're quarantining.
Okay. There's questions about where to get the PowerPoint after this webinar. We will have a copy of the PowerPoint in the Claims Reimbursement Reporting System, the CUR system, in Download Forms, which is under your Applications menu. We'll have it there. Missy will have it available through the P-EBT portal, like she had showed everybody. The PowerPoint from the September webinar is available. We'll make this one available as well as a recording of the webinar. We'll have all those available for you.
And Bridget, I see the one about the 5-day qualifier. Do they have to be any student or just a free and reduced lunch? It can be any student that causes the school to be eligible. It does not have to be someone who is free and reduced lunch eligible.
Okay. So there is a question about, can they receive benefits if a paper application is completed and not direct certification? And the answer is yes. In the Ohio Department of Education Q&A, I believe it's question 2. It shows all the different ways that a student, for the purposes of P-EBT, can be eligible for free or reduced price meals. And that includes either a paper application from 1920, 2021, or 21-22, as long as a new determination hasn't been made since the last time they submitted an application, or you use the most recent application, basically. You can do that. Direct certification list from 21-22, or categorical eligibility, like if they have been certified homeless, runaway, migrant, if they are in a Head Start classroom, all of those still qualify students for categorical eligible free meals, and those would also count. And then, as we had also mentioned, it's simply by being in attendance in a community eligibility provision building or a provision 2 building, if they would have been on those programs had the ability to be on the seamless summer option not been for all schools this year. That also qualifies all the students within those buildings as basically eligible for P-EBT, as long as any given student, then it becomes the question of the child. Does the child itself have P-EBT qualifying days? And then you go from there. Okay, let's see. When submitting students' days for quarantine, and some of the days are in 1 month and the other days are in the following month, how do we record them?
So, for example, August and September information was due in October. And then if they had days falling into October, you would wait to submit them on the November data collection. Correct me if I'm wrong, Missy. I feel like that was kind of your question, but I kind of took it.
I'm going to apologize. I was responding to a chat. What was the question again?
See, sorry, I was trying to. It was talking about how they report the days if it spans over 2 different months. And so the days, so I gave the example that if there were days they meet for August and September, those would have been reported in October, and then days in October would be reported in November. So it's just kind of following that data submission cadence that we've put together.
Correct. Just you want to make sure that if it's August, September, it goes in the August, September column. If it's October days, it goes in the October column. I know there was questions about, you know, if they split the months, they're on the last day of 1 month and the first 4 days of the next month. Do you put them all in one? You know, put them in the month they fall in. It's probably easier for the school to track that way, honestly.
Okay, Missy, while you're still there, are the videos available on the P-EBT website if the person is not logged in?
That was actually what I was just typing the response back to. Yes, anybody that's on the public portion of it, you don't have to be logged in to get to the videos.
Okay. And I think we covered the categorical eligibility. The other categorical eligibility, any way that a child typically is approved for free meals is still valid for this purpose, and then for P-EBT. So homeless, migrant, runaway, all of that has to be the current year though. Like they have to be deemed eligible based on that for the current year in order for P-EBT. Let's see. If a student gets 0 days, should the 0 be entered or should it be left blank?
Some schools choose to put a 0 in to know that they've accounted for that student for reporting. Other schools have chosen to leave the field blank for that. We will accept the data either way.
Okay. And then I think people just want to confirm, just for sake of mind. So for example, if the qualifying 5-day period started on August 20th, am I to start counting anything on August 20th, not at the end of the 5 days? Anything before that date is ineligible. Can you confirm?
That is correct.
Let's see. So if I had any student in school where 5 consecutive days, do we have to go back and make sure we didn't have students for August and September that are free and reduced? Bye.
Well, okay, so that's kind of a mixed bag there. So you have to make sure that you don't have anyone after you met the 5 consecutive days that was eligible for free and reduced lunch and was not at school as a result of either remote learning or quarantine. Did not get their meal. Does that make sense? I feel like it feels like a big answer, but it's not just because they're free and reduced lunch eligible. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that there were some other questions or comments in there that for this P-EBT, we just really want to bring it back to the fact that it's not just the child is free or reduced eligible, and it's not just that the school is eligible to submit, the child actually has to have qualifying days, which means that they did not have access to free reduced meals because they were either home quarantining or they were remote learning. So simply by being free and reduced doesn't qualify them for P-EBT days. There was a comment that said, based on the new COVID quarantining guidelines, where the Department of Health has said that children can actually stay in school if they've been exposed as long as they wear a mask, then that is completely correct. If the school district follows that guideline and the children stay in school and those children have access to free and reduced meals on those days, even though they're in school quarantining, if you will, they do not, they're not eligible for P-EBT days because they had access to meals in school. That's kind of the underlining message. Did they have access to meals in school that school day or not? And if they did, then they do not qualify for P-EBT, even if they're free or reduced.
And then I see Sherry Bryan wrote, students don't have to be out 5 days to start counting the days, correct? If they're out 1 day, they're counted. That's correct if the school has met the 5 consecutive days first, because it's a 2-prong test. Did the school have at least 5 consecutive days of someone quarantining or remote learning? Then it goes to the child. And then at that point, you can count 1 day.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So the question was that a school has been full-time on campus operating school lunch. They've been pulling direct certification and collecting paper applications every year as normal. So our free and reduced comes from qualifying students from 21-22. You mentioned 19-20 paper applications. Am I supposed to? It's more of you can. The USDA has said you can use 19-20, 20-21, or 21-22 applications. And the reason that they said that is that most schools are not collecting free and reduced applications in earnest, for the mere fact that they're on the seamless summer option and all children are getting no cost meals anyway, and the households don't understand that they still have to collect applications. But if your school district has been collecting applications and making new determinations, you would use the most recent application for any given child, or most recent determination for any given child. So the answer is you could, but if you are actively collecting the applications and you have new determinations for all the children, you use the new determinations. The most recent information for any given child is what you're going to use. When it comes to paper applications, direct certification and other categorical eligibility has to be from the current year. All right, we got a few more minutes. Let's see if we've got any more. I think we might have covered anything. Does anybody want to add another question to the chat? Again, we will make the PowerPoint available and a recording of this webinar available. So the question is, the 19-20 school year students do not qualify anymore. So if the students from 19-20 were free or reduced eligible based on a paper application, they possibly could qualify if they're still enrolled and you have not received a 20-21 or a 21-22 application from them. So it's most important to use the most recent application, and that only is for the applications. Direct certification, other categorical eligibilities, you have to use the most recent information to deem children eligible for free or reduced meals and then P-EBT. If a parent did not fully complete the paper application, would they still qualify? So you would process the applications in the same manner that you usually do in a traditional year. So if the application was incomplete, then you wouldn't make a determination on it because it's an incomplete application. So you would have to have the family complete whatever is missing of it so that you can make that determination. Oh, great question. So if a family was pulled for verification in this year and don't respond, do they still qualify for the rest of the year? So if an application was pulled for verification and you go through the process and they either are determined not eligible for benefits anymore, or they don't respond and therefore are taken off free or reduced benefits, then you, like any normal verification year, you would then deem them denied of benefits from that due to verification, you would send them the letter. They no longer qualify for free or reduced meals at that point, and then therefore do not qualify for P-EBT moving forward. Okay, let's see. Our high school met the 5-day requirement, is now virtual, not because of COVID. Oh, that's interesting. They're now virtual, not because of COVID, but another reason. So every free and reduced student, do they qualify for the virtual days?
So I think we need to have that scenario emailed to you, Bridget, so we can discuss the details of why they are virtual, and go from there.
Yeah, because really these days should, or the action should be based on COVID, which is kind of a final parting last comment, that if you are submitting days for a student based on them being out of school because they're sick, it has to be based on knowledge that they're sick due to COVID exposure or COVID positive or a COVID reason. If they're sick based on the flu, or they caught a cold and they are just simply not at school, or they have an unexcused absence, or they've gone on vacation, even if they're free or reduced, those days do not qualify for P-EBT. Okay. So we appreciate your attendance today. We will be putting together a comprehensive question and answer document that hopefully will also post in the next week or so, but we will get these PowerPoint slides posted along with a recording of the webinar. We appreciate your attendance today and hope that all of you have a really good day and rest of the week.